I'm on a ferry from IJmuiden back to Newcastle, so a little bit different shot than usual. This trip will feature in my next video, but for the time being let's get back to the Bracelet. Well, after a very turbulent time in Istanbul, we crossed the Bosphorus into Asia just because we wanted to say we'd been there, and we spent a night there. The place we found was, how can I put it, a little bit different from where most people stay. Guarded by large iron gates and a very ferocious dog which was chained on the other side of the gates. Because it was chained, we weren't deterred. Found an area to the right hand side where there were parking areas for motorhomes. There was a very large building which was a bit strange really. It was almost industrial like, and there were no people about. Anyway, having parked the motorhome, I went for a wander around the building to see if I could find somebody. Now, isn't it strange how when you feel threatened, people seem to be very big? Well, I was just walking around the building and all of a sudden this door burst open and a large gentleman, a sort of cross between Attila the Hun and Jabba the Hutt. Yeah, I did feel threatened. Maybe he wasn't quite that big, but anyway, he was quite aggressive towards me, and I probably recoiled a little and tried to explain that we only wanted to spend the night there in the motorhome, and pointed across to the van. He then made a phone call and he handed the phone to me. The owner spoke great English, was very welcoming, and asked me to hand the phone back to the guy, which I did. And the guy just changed into a pussycat. He was just so friendly towards us. The owners of the place actually came down and spent the night in the building just to make sure that we were safe for the night. I mean, how brilliant is that? After our night in Asia, we headed back over the Bosphorus into Europe and continued north through Turkey. We came down to a junction where a bloke had just parked a car just beyond the junction, got out and stood in the middle of the road. We had to give way anyway, but he just stood there, so we stopped. And he looked down at our registration number and looked up at us and just went and walked off. Rachel and I just burst out laughing. Before we crossed into Bulgaria, we had heard stories which weren't very complimentary towards the police and the authorities. Anyway, when we arrived at the border, I had to produce my registration document, and the guy in the kiosk just didn't understand it and charged us for the price of a car, which was only about €5. Now, the problem was this. Turkey had an issue with mad cow disease or something like that, but it had been some time before, and the Bulgarians were charging people to be disinfected before they came into their country, or at least the vehicles disinfected, not the people. So we had to drive through a car wash. The thing was, Turkey were a little bit unhappy about Bulgarians for doing this, because the mad cow disease thing finished years ago, and it transpired that the Bulgarians were actually using water to disinfect vehicles, which obviously didn't go down too well. Anyway, we went through the car wash type thing and carried on down to the Black Sea. Now, I didn't get a vignette because I thought, well, I only need vignettes for motorways and we're not going on the motorway, so we'll be all right. It transpired that actually we needed a vignette to drive on pretty much all the roads we were travelling on. Rachel and I had this unwritten rule. If either of us weren't happy about the place we were staying, then we would move on, no questions asked. Well, we arrived at this waste ground overlooking the Black Sea, or at least we would be overlooking the Black Sea if it hadn't been foggy. Anyway, I wasn't too happy about the place. But as the evening kind of went on, I just casually said to Rachel, "So, how do you feel about staying here for the night?" "Oh, no problem at all. Oh, I'm very happy stopping here." So, okay, I wasn't going to be a wimp. we kind of carried on. And we had a meal, a few glasses of wine, and then as we retired to the bedroom and I was switching the light off for the night, she says, "I'll be glad when it's morning though." Well, brilliant. I spent the whole night with one eye open, just waiting for daylight to arrive. In the morning, the routine was I would go through to the kitchen, make a cup of tea, bring it back to the bedroom. So we're both sitting up in bed. She turns to me and says, "So, how did you sleep then?" "Well, not very well actually. How about you?" "Like a log." Well, it makes me laugh even until today. The next day I managed to get myself a vignette, which was just as well really, because half an hour further down the road we got stopped by the police. Were they interested in the vignette? No. All they were interested in was, were we smuggling guns, drugs, people through the country? So a thorough search of the van, but they never found what they were looking for. Well, I wasn't hiding anything. So they let us go. We had no issues with them at all. Everything was absolutely fine. We then headed east on the motorway, because now we had a vignette. And the thing about Bulgarian motorways, they have potholes and articulated goods vehicles just swerving from the outside lane to the hard shoulder, just wherever. They would just go wherever, just to avoid the potholes. So that was quite entertaining. Then we found an oasis, which was a house owned by an English couple who were motorhomers, and they'd turned their large garden into a place for motorhomes to stay, and it was absolutely first class. The village was called Boyanovo, and apparently the Russians had a base here for a while, and the town flourished. But then the Russians pulled out. Well, but we left Bulgaria. There were places we wanted to see, but to be honest, we were kind of getting a little bit tired of Bulgaria, and no disrespect to Bulgaria, we maybe just didn't see the right places. So we then went into Romania. Romania turned out to be, of the 30 countries we'd visited, our favourite country. And I could do a video just on that country. It was amazing, architecture, scenery, etc., etc. But just one story from Romania. We'd been on the road now for 3 or 4 weeks, and we had barely seen another motorhome on the road, and certainly not an English one. Anyway, we were parked in the grounds of a hotel. It was a large garden, but where they allowed motorhomes to stay. And it was just Rachel and me there. And we were sitting outside the van, and I was probably looking at a map, and she would be doing her sort of crochet or sort of crafty stuff. And the gates opened and this van pulls in. Now, some vans are used by Europeans. Some vans are only used by British. Now, nothing against the British. Let's face it, we're British. But as it turned in, Rachel turned to me and went, "Oh no, it's English." Well, we decided that we were going to have a night off the alcohol. Anyway, so the van turns in, and I'm not joking, the wheels had barely stopped turning before the wife was out. She was across at us. "You're the first English people we've seen on our entire trip. Do you drink wine?" Well, We never had any wine in, did we? But there was a little very conveniently placed. So I went to get 5 litres or whatever it takes for a good night. And we had the most amazing night with Rob and Brenda. And we've been friends ever since. I'm still in touch with them now. The following morning, Brenda came over, very bleary-eyed, and said, "Oh, you do drink alcohol, don't you? I think we've met our match." From Romania, we were pretty much heading home, and we stopped in Slovakia after we'd been through a couple of other countries. But we stopped in Slovakia at a place called Suchebela. Suchebela is a very well-known walk, and we were looking forward to this. We'd paid our €2 per person or whatever it cost to do it. And then when we got to the kiosk, there was a lad there who said, "Oh, do you want insurance?" "Do we want insurance? We're from the Lake District in Cumbria. We have fells. We don't need insurance." So we carried on without insurance. Well, again, I think the photographs will do a better description than I can. But my admiration for Rachel just went up a few notches. Continuing in the general direction of England, we stopped in Germany at the Mosel, above the Mosel, where all the photographs are taken of the river cruise boats going round the big U-bend. This was the place where we suspected Rachel might have had cancer, and we went home. We were home in 2 days and it was confirmed. Anyway, I don't wish to go into all the details of that, but what I am going to do is cut to the chase, which is about this bracelet, okay, which I now wear. On this bracelet are places that Rachel was really proud to go to. The countries that are on here are places like Bulgaria, Romania, Macedonia, Montenegro, Albania, Turkey, Istanbul. The places that she really treasured. Obviously now I wear the bracelet. And now I've had 3 more rings put on it. One with Rachel's name and the other 2 with our grandchildren's names. That's the bracelet.